Oil from the terebinth tree was also used. The 5 discrete virgins of Jesus illustration each is a lamp and the receptacle containing oil. Mount 25. 1-4 Those who came to arrest Jesus were also carrying lamps and torches. Joe 18. 3. Ordinarily, household lamps were made of earthenware, although bronze lamps have also been discovered in Palestine. The common Canaanite lamp was shaped like a saucer, having a rounded bottom and vertical rim. Pictures, Volume 2, p. 952. Its rim was slightly pinched on one side, where the wick rested. Sometimes the rim was pinched at the 4 corners, providing 4 places for wicks. In time, lamps were made in somewhat different shapes, some being closed except for 2 holes, one on top near the center for filling the vessel with oil and the other being a spout for holding the wick. Certain lamps had a loop handle at the end opposite the spout, sometimes in a horizontal, but more often in a vertical position. The Greco-Roman type frequently bore mythological human or animal forms, but the Jews made lamps bearing such designs. Textoi acute miritra longo. Lamp 195. Early saucer lamps were generally a shade of brown. Varieties made in the 1st century CE were of various colors, including light brown, red-orange, and gray. Also, there were those of Roman times that were covered with red glaze. The lamps generally used in homes and other buildings might be placed in a niche in the wall, or on a shelf on a wall or pillar, or they might be suspended from the ceiling by means of the cord. Sometimes they were placed on clay, wooden, or metal stands. Such lampstands permitted the light to radiate throughout the room. 2 Chi 4. 10. Mount 5. 15. Mr. 4. 21. The use of candles is not mentioned in the Bible. Lamp oil, a liquid, was used to produce light. Hence, frequent rendering by the King James Version of the Hebrew na and the Greek word lidashk, knows as candle is inappropriate, as at Job 29. 3 and Luke 11. 33, where modern translations such as at, NW, RS fittingly use lamp. Sanctuary use. In Israel's tabernacle, the lampstand was made of gold and differed in design from common household lampstands. Made according to Jehovah God's instructions X25. 31, it was ornamented with alternating knobs and blossoms and had 3 branches on each side of a central shaft, thus providing for 7 holders in which small lamps were placed. Only fine beaten olive oil was used in these lamps. X37. 17-24. 27. 20 later, Solomon had 10 golden lampstands and a number of silver lampstands made for temple use. 1 Chi 7. 48, 49. 1 Ch 28. 15. 2 Ch 4. 19, 20. 13. 11. Jehovah a lamp and source of light. Jehovah is the paramount source of light and guidance. David, after being delivered out of the hand of his enemies and of Saul, said, "You are my lamp, O Jehovah, and it is Jehovah that makes my darkness shine." 2 Sa 22. 29 In the Psalms a slightly different expression is used. "You yourself will light my lamp, O Jehovah," there picturing Jehovah as the one kindling the lamp that David carried to light his way. PS 18. 28. Jesus Christ. In the heavenly New Jerusalem, as seen by the Apostle John in vision, night will not exist. The city's light is not that of the sun and moon, for Jehovah God's glory directly lights up the city, just as the cloud of light that the Hebrews called the Shekinah illuminated the most holy of the ancient tabernacle and temple. The 16. 2. Compare New 9. 15, 16. And the Lamb, Jesus Christ, is its lamp. This city will shed its spiritual light down upon the nations, the inhabitants of the new earth, for their guidance. Re 21. 22-25. Kings of the line of David. Jehovah God established King David on the throne of Israel, and David proved to be a wise guide and leader of the nation, under God's direction. He was therefore called the Lamp of Israel. 2 Sa 21. 17 In his kingdom covenant with David, Jehovah promised, "Your very throne will become one firmly established to time indefinite." 2 Sa 7. 11-16. Accordingly, the dynasty, or family line, of rulers from David through his son Solomon was as a lamp to Israel. 1 Kings 11. 36. 15. 4. 2 Kings 8. 19. 2 Ch 21. 7. When King Zedekiah was dethroned and taken captive to Babylon to die there, it appeared that the lamp was extinguished. But Jehovah had not abandoned his covenant. He merely held rulership on the throne in abeyance until he comes who is the legal right. As 21. 27. Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the Son of David, was heir to that throne forever. Thus the lamp of David will never go out. Jesus is therefore an everlasting lamp as the one who possesses the kingdom forever. Mount 1. 1. 1. 32. God's Word. Because man must live, not on bread alone, but on every utterance coming forth through Jehovah's mouth. Mount 4. 4. His commandments are like a lamp, lighting the way of God's servants in the darkness of this world. The psalmist declared, "Your word is a lamp to my foot, and a light to my roadway." PS 119. 105. King Solomon said, "For the commandment is a lamp, and a light the law is, O textoi acute miritra longo." Lampstand 196 was a burning and shining lamp, and you for a short time were willing to rejoice greatly in his light. But I have the witness greater than that of John, for the very works that my Father assigned me to accomplish, the works themselves that I am doing, bear witness about me that the Father dispatched me. Job 5. 35, 36. Jesus also said to his disciples, "You are the light of the world. A city cannot be hid when situated upon a mountain. People light a lamp and set it, not under the measuring basket, but upon the lampstand, and it shines upon all those in the house. Likewise let your light shine before men, that they may see your fine works and give glory to your Father who is in the heavens." Mount 5. 14-16. The servant of God should appreciate the reason for which he is given the light, and he should realize that it would be utterly foolish and disastrous for him to refuse to let it shine from him as from a lamp. Other figurative uses. What a person depends upon to light his way is symbolized by a lamp. With such a figure the proverb contrasts the righteous and the wicked, saying, "The very light of the righteous ones will rejoice, but the lamp of the wicked ones, it will be extinguished." PR 13. 9. The light of the righteous continually becomes more brilliant, but however brilliantly the lamp of the wicked appears to shine, and however prosperous his way may seem as a consequence, God will see to it that he ends up in darkness, where his foot will certainly stumble. Such an outcome is ahead for the person calling down evil on his father and mother. PR 20. 20. One's lamp being extinguished also means that there is no future for him. Another proverb says, "There will prove to be no future for anyone bad. The very lamp of wicked people will be extinguished." PR 24. 20. Bildad, when implying that Job was hiding some secret wickedness, said of the wicked, "A light itself will certainly grow dark in his tent, and in it his own lamp will be extinguished." Farther on in his argument Bildad adds, "He will have no posterity and no progeny among his people." In the light of the fact that Solomon was said to be a lamp that God gave to David his father, the putting out of one's lamp may carry the thought that such a person would have no progeny to take over his inheritance. Job 18. 6, 19. 1 Kings 11. 36. One's eye is, figuratively, a lamp. Jesus said, "The lamp of the body is the eye. If, then, your eye is simple, sincere, all one way, in focus, generous, your whole body will be bright. But if your eye is wicked, your whole body will be dark." Mount 6. 22, 23. FTN The eye is like a lamp, because with it the body can walk about without stumbling and without bumping into anything. Jesus, of course, had in mind the eyes of the heart. F1. 18, as his words in the context show. Proverbs 31. 18, in saying of the good wife, "Her lamp does not go out at night, uses a figurative expression meaning that she works industriously at night and even rises before dawn for further work. Compare PR 31:15. According to Proverbs 20:27, the breath of earthling man is the lamp of Jehovah, carefully searching all the innermost parts of the belly. By what a person breathes out, or gives vent to, whether good or bad expressions, he reveals, or sheds light on, his personality or inmost self. Compare Act 9. 1. Lampstand. A stand or support for an oil-burning lamp or lamps. Though mentioning lampstands in homes and other buildings to Chi 4. 10. Da 5. 5. Lu 8. 16. 11. 33. The Bible's emphasis is primarily on the lampstands associated with true worship. In the tabernacle, Jehovah directed Moses in vision to make for use in the tabernacle a lampstand heb. Mino middle.ra. Gr. My middle.Nia of pure gold, of hammered work. Together with its lamps and utensils it was to weigh 1 talent. X 25. 31, 39, 40. 37. 17, 24. New 8. 4. Hob 9. 2. This would equal about 34 kilograms 92 pounds T, with a value, in modern O-text to acute muritra longo, lampstand 197 x 31. 1-11. 35. 30-35. These men were doubtless good craftsmen, possibly learning the trade while slaves in Egypt. But Jehovah now put his spirit upon them so that the work could be perfectly done, exactly according to the pattern revealed and spoken to Moses. X 25. 9, 40. 39. 43. 40. 16. Use. Moses placed the lampstand in the tent of meeting in front of the table, on the side of the tabernacle to the south. Evidently it was parallel with the south side of the tent left-hand side as one entered, opposite the table of showbread. The light shone on the area in front of the lampstand, thus illuminating the holy place, which contained also the golden altar of incense. X 40. 22-26. New 8. 2, 3. At the time Moses completed setting up the tabernacle, on Nisan 1, 1512 BCE he followed Jehovah's instructions to light the lamps. X 40. 1, 2, 4, 25. Later on, Aaron did so. New 8. 3, and thereafter he and future high priests set the lampstand in order from evening to morning before Jehovah constantly. La 24. 3, 4. When Aaron dressed the lamps morning by morning and when he lit them between the 2 evenings, he also offered incense on the golden altar. X 30. 1, 7, 8. The lampstand, with the other tabernacle utensils, was transported during the wilderness journey by the Kohathite family of the tribe of Levi. First, however, the priests had to cover the articles, because, as Jehovah warned, non-priestly persons must not come in to see the holy things for the least moment of time, and so they have to die. The lampstand with its accessories was covered with a blue cloth and then put into a covering of sealskin and put onto a bar for carrying. New 4. 4, 9, 10, 15, 19, 20. In the account relating King David's bringing the Ark of the Covenant to Mount Zion, there is no mention of the lampstand. Evidently it remained in the tabernacle in the various locations where the tabernacle came to be situated. In the temples, David gave to Solomon the architectural plans for the temple, which plans he had received by inspiration. These included directions for lampstands of gold and lampstands of silver. 1 ch 28. 11, 12, 15, 19. There were 10 golden lampstands, and they were placed 5 to the right and 5 to the left, or 5 on the south side and 5 on the north side as one faced east, in the holy of the temple. 1 Chi 7. 48, 49. 2 ch 4. 20. All 10 of these were of the same plan. 2 ch 4. 7. They were perhaps much larger than the one that had been in the tabernacle, commensurate with the increased dimensions of the temple and its other furnishings, such as the molten sea. 2 ch 3. 3, 4. 1 Kai 7. 23-26 The silver lampstands were undoubtedly used in courtyards or rooms other than the Holy and the Most Holy, for the furnishings of these two rooms were of gold. As in the tabernacle, the lamps of the golden lampstands were lighted up evening by evening, constantly. 2 Ch 13. 11. When the temple was destroyed by the Babylonians in 607 BCE, the lampstands were among the gold and silver items taken from the house of Jehovah. J 52. 19. Jewish portrayals of the temple lampstand on a column pillar at the right. On a synagogue floor above have a base design very different from what is shown on the Arch of Titus, lampstand 198 temple rebuilt by Zerubbabel. The scriptures provide no information about lampstands in the temple rebuilt by Zerubbabel. However, Josephus says that Antiochus Epiphanes stripped the temple, carrying off the golden lampstands. Jewish Antiquities, 12, 250 v. For the apocryphal book of Maccabees mentions a lampstand being removed, necessitating the making of a new one. 1 Maccabees 1. 21-23. 4. 49, 50, JB. Temple rebuilt by Herod. The magnificence of the temple rebuilt by Herod would give basis for assuming that this temple must also have contained lampstands equal in beauty and costliness to those in Solomon's temple. We have no mention of them in the scriptures, however. Evidence of such a lampstand is found in its mention by Josephus and its representation on a bas-relief in an interior vault of the Triumphal Arch of Titus in Rome. On this arch are depicted certain items taken from Jerusalem when it was destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. Josephus claimed to have been an eyewitness of this triumphal procession of Emperor Vespasian and his son Titus. Josephus speaks of the procession carrying a lampstand, likewise made of gold, but constructed on a different pattern from those which we use in ordinary life. Affixed to a pedestal was a central shaft, from which there extended slender branches, arranged trident fashion, a wrought lamp being attached to the extremity of each branch. Of these there were 7. The Jewish War, 7, 148, 149 v. 5. No one can say for certain today whether the lampstand depicted on the Arch of Titus looks exactly the same as the original from the temple in Jerusalem. Differences in opinion concern mainly the form of the base, made up of two parallel polygonal cases, the smaller one above the larger. One viewpoint is that the Roman representation on the arch is accurate, but that Herod himself had changed its design from the traditional Jewish form of a triangular, or tripod, base in a westernizing campaign to please the Romans. Other scholars disagree that the representation is exact. Decorative panels on the base display eagles and sea monsters, which they cite as an apparent violation of the second commandment. Some conclude that the original temple lampstand stood on 3 legs, basing this in part on the numerous representations of the lampstand from different parts of Europe and the Middle East dating from the 3rd to the 6th centuries that show a tripod base, a few with animal feet. The oldest representation of the lampstand appears on coins of Antigonus II, who reigned 40-37 BCE, though not well preserved. One specimen seems to indicate that the base consisted of a plate with feet. In 1969, a representation of the temple lampstand was found incised in plaster in a house excavated in the old city of Jerusalem. The schematic drawing indicates 7 branches and a triangular base, all ornamented with knobs separated by 2 parallel lines. In the tomb of Jason, discovered in Jerusalem in 1956 and dated to the beginning of the 1st century BCE, archaeologists found designs of a 7-branched lampstand scratched into a plaster. The lower sections seem to be stuck into a box or stand. Thus, on the basis of these archaeological findings, some object to the appearance of the base of the lampstand on the Arch of Titus and suggest among other possibilities that the carvings are a Roman artist's conception influenced by Jewish designs familiar to him from other sources. Figurative use. The prophet Zechariah saw in vision an unusual golden lampstand. As with the lampstand prepared for the tabernacle, it had 7 lamps, but these lamps had 7 pipes, which scholars understand in a distributive sense to mean a pipe to each lamp. Also, on top of the lampstand there was a bowl. Apparently a continuous supply of oil was provided for the lamps through the pipes leading to them. the oil evidently came o textoi acute muritra longo. Landowner 199. Two witnesses who were to prophesy in sackcloth were said to be symbolized by the two olive trees and the two lampstands. Re 11. 3, 4. Lance. See arms, armor. Landowner. From very early times, property rights of landowners or landholders have been a middle lim, literally, owners have been recognized. Abraham bargained with Ephron the Hittite for a burial place for his wife Sarah, finally buying a field for a stated sum, the transaction being legalized before the townspeople. GE 23. 1-20 During a famine in Egypt, Joseph bought land for Pharaoh from Egyptian landowners, in exchange for food. GE 47. 20-26 God's faithful servant Job, living in the land of Uz, possessed inheritable property, doubtless including land, that he gave to his sons and daughters. Job 1. 4. 42. 15 However, Jehovah is the supreme landowner, and his dealings demonstrate that humans are accountable to him for the way they use his property. PS 24. 1. 50. 10-12. In Israel. When Jehovah brought Israel into Canaan, he exercised his right as Lord and owner of the whole earth to dispossess the Canaanites, who were, in effect, squatters on the land. Jos 3. 11. 1 Co 10. 26 The period of God's tolerating their holding the land had run out. Although more than 450 years previously God had promised the land to Abraham's seed, he had told Abraham. The era of the Amorites, a term sometimes used for all the Canaanite tribes, has not yet come to completion. GE 15. 7, 8, 12-16 Therefore, as the Christian martyr Stephen told the Jews, God did not give Abraham any inheritable possession in it, no, not a footbreadth. But he promised to give it to him as a possession, and after him to his seed, while as yet he has no child. Acts 7. 5. Israel was not to fight wars of aggression, continuing to expand its territory by taking the property of surrounding nations. Jehovah warned Israel that they must respect the property rights of certain nations to whom he had assigned land. These nations were Edom, Moab, and Ammon, related to the Israelites through Esau, Edom, and Lot, Moab, and Ammon. The 2. 4, 5, 9, 19. Promised land held in trust. Even the people Israel, to whom God had given the land for them to enjoy as landowners, were told by Jehovah that they were not actually owners of it but only held it in trust. He said concerning the sale of a family land estate. So the land should not be sold in perpetuity, because the land is mine. For you are alien residents and settlers from my standpoint. 25. 23 God had ousted the Canaanites from the land for their disgusting practices. He warned he would also take away all title from Israel and drive them out of the land if they followed such practices, and when they later did, they were sent into exile. Law 18. 24-30. 25. 18, 19. 26. 27-33. Jah 52. 27 After 70 years of desolation of their land, from 607 to 537 BCE God mercifully re-established them, but this time under Gentile domination. Eventually, in 70 CE the Romans completely destroyed Jerusalem and scattered its people. Within the nation, tribes were assigned sections of the land or cities inside the boundaries of other tribes. Priests and Levites had cities with pasture grounds. Jos 15-21 In turn, within the tribes families were allotted inheritances. These divisions became smaller as families subdivided their own allotments, because of increase in numbers. This resulted in thorough cultivation and use of the land. Inheritances were not allowed to circulate from one tribe to another. To prevent this, women who inherited land, because there were no living brothers, had to marry within the tribe to hold their inheritance. New 36. 1-12. If a man died without having a son, his brother or, if no brothers, his nearest of kin could marry his widow to bring forth offspring from her. The man marrying the widow could also repurchase the dead man's inheritance, if it had been sold. Rue 4. 9, 10, 13-17 A woman's otextoi acute miritra longo, landowner 200 in Israel. This was illustrated in the refusal of Naboth to sell a field of his inheritance to King Ahab. 1 Kai 21. 1-4, 17-19. Compares 46. 18. The Levites. As a protection to the Levites, their fields could not be sold. It was because Levites had no individual land inheritance. They had been given only houses in the Levite cities and the pasture grounds surrounding them. If a Levite sold his house in a Levite city, the right of repurchase continued for him, and in the Jubilee, at the latest, it was returned to him. 25. 32-34. As the productive land yielded fruitage, the great proprietor of all the land was not to be left out of the picture. By means of the tithing arrangement, a tenth of the produce was to be used to support the Levites in their important functions related to Jehovah's worship, thus spiritually benefiting all Israel. New 18. 21-24. The 14. 22-29. The sanctuary. The sanctuary of Jehovah could also become a landholder by reason of fields sanctified to Jehovah. That is, the produce of these fields went to the sanctuary for a period of time designated by the owner or possessor. Law 27. 16-19 If a field that was sanctified by the owner was not repurchased, but was sold to another man, that field would become the permanent possession of the sanctuary at the time of the Jubilee. Law 27. 20-21 Also, fields devoted to the sanctuary by their owners remained the permanent possession of the sanctuary. Law 27. 28. In the Christian congregation. The Bible makes it clear that individual property rights were recognized in the Christian congregation. When the congregation was established, on Pentecost Day, 33 CE, many Jews and proselytes of the Jewish religion from other lands had gathered at Jerusalem to observe the festival. A large number of these were present to hear Peter's discourse and began to be believers in Christ. Act 2. 1, 5, 9-11, 41, 42, 47 They remained to learn more. So the Christians voluntarily sold possessions and distributed the proceeds to help these visiting ones and others who were needy. They had all things in common. Act 2. 44-46 This was not socialism or communism, but a voluntary sharing for the purpose of aiding persons interested in the good news and in furthering the spread of it. Later, for similar reasons, and partly because of persecution of the Christians by Jerusalem's rulers, this practice continued, under the spirit and undeserved kindness of God. Fields were sold and the proceeds brought to the apostles, who administered the assistance program. Act 4. 31-37 But each Christian's property was his own and his rights were inviolable. He was under no compulsion to put property into a common pool. It was counted as a privilege to do so, not a duty. It was right motive that dominated and moved these generous Christians. In the case of Ananias and Sapphira, however, a hypocritical show was made in order to get plaudits and honor of men. They conspired together to sell a field and to give only part of the proceeds to the apostles, with the claim that they were generously giving up all the possession. Peter, by direction of Holy Spirit, discerned what they were doing. He did not say, "Why did you not give us all the money you received for the field?" as if they were under obligation to do so. Rather, he said, "Ananias, why has Satan emboldened you to play false to the Holy Spirit and to hold back secretly some of the price of the field? As long as it remained with you, did it not remain yours, and after it was sold, did it not continue in your control? Why was it that you purposed such a deed as this in your heart? You have played false, not to men, but to God." Act 5. 1-4. About 3 hours later, when Sapphira came in, not knowing what had happened, she made the same claim, and Peter replied, "Why was it agreed upon between you two to make a test of the Spirit of Jehovah?" Act 5. 7-9 Their synotextoi acute miritra longo, language 201 Earth. Mount 5. 5. PS 37. 9, 22, 29 He taught his followers to pray to God. Let your kingdom come. Let your will take place, as in heaven, also upon earth. Mount 6. 10 Under the kingdom sovereignty of the great landowner himself, those holding land in trust for him in faithfulness are to experience the full joy of ownership in complete security. God stated his viewpoint of proper conditions as regards land ownership when he gave restoration prophecies through the mouths of Isaiah and Micah. These indicate what situation he will bring about when his will takes place on earth. He said of his people, "They will certainly build houses and have occupancy. And they will certainly plant vineyards and eat their fruitage. They will not build and someone else have occupancy. They will not plant and someone else do the eating. And they will actually sit, each one under his vine and under his fig tree, and there will be no one making them tremble." Isa 65. 21, 22. Mic 4. 4. See people of the land earth. Language. Any means, vocal or other, by which feelings or thoughts are expressed or communicated. Generally, however, language means a body of words and the methods of combining these is understood by a community of people. The Hebrew and Greek words for tongue signify language. J 5. 15, ftn. Act 2. 11, int. The Hebrew term for lip is used in a similar way. G 11. 1, ftn. Language, of course, is most intimately associated with the mind, which employs the speech organs, throat, tongue, lips, and teeth, as its instruments. See tongue. Thus, the Encyclopaedia Britannica 1959 edition states, "Thinking and words go together. For thinking, to be clear, has to rely upon names or nouns and their various associations with one another." While some minor reservations are justifiable, there is an overwhelming mass of evidence that fortifies the contention stated above. No words, no thinking. Volume 5, p. 740 words are man's principal means of receiving, storing, manipulating, and transmitting information. Origin of speech. The first human, Adam, was created with a vocabulary, as well as with the ability to coin new words and thus expand his vocabulary. Without a God-given vocabulary, the newly created man would have been no more able to comprehend verbal instructions from his creator than were the unreasoning animals. Ge 1. 27-30. 2. 16-20. Compare to PE 2. 12. Jude 10. So, while only intelligent man of all earth's creatures has the ability of true speech, language did not originate with man, but with man's all-wise creator, Jehovah God. Compare X 4. 11, 12. On the origin of language, the well-known lexicographer Ludwig Kuhler wrote, "There has been, especially in former times, much speculation as to how human speech came into being. Writers strove to explore animal language. For animals also are able to express audibly by sounds and groups of sounds their feelings and sensations, such as contentment, fear, emotion, threat, anger, sexual desire and satisfaction in its fulfillment, and perhaps many other things. However manifold these animal expressions may be, they lack concept and thought, the essential domain of human language." After showing how men can explore the physiological aspect of human speech, he adds, "But what actually happens in speech, how the spark of perception kindles the spirit of the child, or of mankind generally, to become the spoken word, eludes our grasp. Human speech is a secret. It is a divine gift, a miracle." Journal of Semitic Studies, Manchester, 1956, p. 11. Language had been employed for untold ages prior to man's appearance on the universal scene. Jehovah God communicated with his heavenly firstborn son and evidently used him in communicating with his other spirit sons. Hence that firstborn son was called the Word. Joe 1. 1. Col 1. 15, 16. Re 3. 14. The Apostle Paul made inspired reference to tongues of men and of angels. O texto e acute miritra longo. Language 202. The origin of this strange diversity in human communication. Up until some point after the global flood, all mankind continued to be of one language literally, lip and of one set of words. Ge 11. 1. The Bible indicates that the language later called Hebrew was that original one language. See Hebrew. 2. As will be shown, this does not mean that all other languages stemmed from and are related to Hebrew, but that Hebrew preceded all other languages. The Genesis account describes the uniting of some part of the post-flood human family in a project that opposed God's will as stated to Noah and his sons. Ge 9. 1. Instead of spreading out and filling the earth, they determined to centralize human society, concentrating their residence on a site in what became known as the plains of Shinar in Mesopotamia. Evidently this was also to become a religious center, with a religious tower. Ge 11. 2-4. Almighty God gave their presumptuous project a setback by breaking up their unity of action, accomplishing this by confusing their common language. This made impossible any coordinated work on their project and led to their scattering to all parts of the globe. The confusion of their language would also hinder or slow down future progress in a wrong direction, a God-defying direction, since it would limit mankind's ability to combine its intellectual and physical powers in ambitious schemes, and also make it difficult to draw upon the accumulated knowledge of the different language groups formed. Knowledge, not from God, but gained through human experience and research. Compare EC 7. 29. 32. 5. So, while it introduced a major divisive factor into human society, the confusion of human speech actually benefited human society in retarding the attainment of dangerous and hurtful goals. Ge 11. 5-9. Compare IS 8. 9, 10. One has only to consider certain developments in our own times, resulting from accumulated secular knowledge and man's misuse thereof, to realize what God foresaw long ago would develop if the effort at Babel were allowed to go unhindered. Philology, the comparative study of languages, generally classifies languages into distinct families. The parent language of each major family usually has not been identified. Much less is there any evidence pointing to any one parent language as the source of all the thousands of tongues now spoken. The Bible record does not say that all languages descended, or branched off, from Hebrew. In what is commonly called the Table of Nations Ge 10, the descendants of Noah's sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth are listed and in each case are grouped according to their families, according to their tongues, in their lands, by their nations. Ge 10. 5, 20, 31, 32. It appears, therefore, that, when miraculously confusing human language, Jehovah God produced, not dialects of Hebrew, but a number of completely new languages, each capable of expressing the full range of human feeling and thought. Thus, after God confused their language, not only did the builders at Babel lack one set of words Ge 11. 1 common vocabulary, but they also lacked a common grammar, a common way of expressing the relationship between words. Professor S.R. Driver stated, languages, however, differ not only in grammar and roots, but also in the manner in which ideas are built up into a sentence. Different races do not think in the same way, and consequently the forms taken by the sentence in different languages are not the same. A Dictionary of the Bible, edited by J. Hastings, 1905, Volume IV, p. 791. Thus, different languages require quite different thought patterns, making it difficult for a new learner to think in the language. Compare 1 Co 14. 10, 11. This is also why literal translation of something said or written in an unfamiliar language may seem illogical, often causing persons to say, but it doesn't make sense. O texto e acute miritra longo. Language 203 developed into separate languages, their relationship to their sister dialects or to the parent language sometimes becoming almost indistinguishable. Even Shem's descendants, who apparently did not figure among the crowd at Babel, came to speak not only Hebrew but also Aramean, Akkadian, and Arabic. Historically, various factors have contributed to the change in languages. Separation due to distance or geographic barriers, wars and conquests, a breakdown in communications, and immigration by those of another language. Because of such factors, ancient major languages have fragmented, certain tongues have partially merged with others, and some languages have disappeared completely and have been replaced by those of the invading conquerors. Language research provides evidence in harmony with the preceding information. The New Encyclopaedia Britannica says, the earliest records of written language, the only linguistic fossils man can hope to have, go back no more than about 4,000 or 5,000 years. 1985, Volume 22, p. 567. An article in Science Illustrated of July 1948, p. 63 states, older forms of the languages known today were far more difficult than their modern descendants. Man appears not to have begun with a simple speech, and gradually made it more complex, but rather to have gotten hold of a tremendously knotty speech somewhere in the unrecorded past, and gradually simplified it to the modern forms. Linguist Dr. Mason also points out that the idea that savages speak in a series of grunts, and are unable to express many civilized concepts, is very wrong, and that many of the languages of non-literate peoples are far more complex than modern European ones. Science Newsletter, September 3, 1955, p. 148. The evidence is thus against any evolutionary origin of speech or of ancient languages. Concerning the focal point from which the spreading of ancient languages began, Sir Henry Rawlinson, Oriental language scholar, observed, if we were to be thus guided by the mere intersection of linguistic parts, and independently of all reference to the scriptural record, we should still be led to fix on the plains of Shinar as the focus from which the various lines had radiated. The Journal of the Royal Asiatic Society of Great Britain and Ireland, London, 1855, Volume 15, p. 232. Among the major families listed by modern philologists are Indo-European, Sino-Tibetan, Afro-Asian, Japanese and Korean, Dravidian, Malayo-Polynesian, and Black African. There are many tongues that till now defy classification. Within each of the major families there are many subdivisions, or smaller families. Thus, the Indo-European family includes Germanic, Romance Italic, Baldo-Slavic, Indo-Iranian, Greek, Celtic, Albanian, and Armenian. Most of these smaller families, in turn, have several members. Romance languages, for example, embrace French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and Romanian. From Abraham onward, Abraham the Hebrew evidently had no difficulty in conversing with the Hamitic people of Canaan. GE 14. 21-24. 20. 1-16. 21. 22-34. No use of interpreters is mentioned, but then, neither is such use mentioned when Abraham went to Egypt. GE 12. 14-19. He probably knew Akkadian, Assyro-Babylonian, because of having lived in Ur of the Chaldeans. GE 11. 31. Akkadian for a time was an international language. It is possible that the people of Canaan, living in relative proximity to the Semitic peoples of Syria and Arabia, were to a degree bilingual. Then, too, the alphabet gives clear evidence of its being of Semitic origin, and this could also have exercised considerable influence toward the use of Semitic tongues by persons of other language groups, particularly rulers and officials. See Canaan, Canaanite No. 2. Language. Writing. Jacob also apparently communicated easily with his Aramean relatives. GE 29. 1-14, though their terminology differed on occasion. GE 31. O textoi acute muritra longo, Laodicea 204 NE 13. 23-25. His concern was for pure worship, as he recognized the importance of understanding the sacred scriptures till then available only in Hebrew when these were read and discussed. Compare NE 13. 26, 27. 8. 1-3, 8, 9. Oneness of language in itself would also be a unifying force among the people. The Hebrew scriptures doubtless were a major factor in the stability of the Hebrew language. During the 1,000-year period of their being written, virtually no change in language is noted. When Jesus was on earth, Palestine had become, to a considerable extent, a polyglot, or multilingual, region. There is solid evidence that the Jews still retained their use of Hebrew, but Aramaic and Koine were also spoken. Latin, too, appeared on official inscriptions of the Roman rulers of the land. Joe 19. 20 and was doubtless heard from Roman soldiers stationed there. As to the language generally spoken by Jesus, see Aramaic. Also Hebrew, too. On the day of Pentecost, 33 CE, the Holy Spirit was poured out on the Christian disciples in Jerusalem, and they suddenly began speaking in many languages that they had never studied and learned. Jehovah God had demonstrated at Babel his miraculous ability to place different vocabularies and different grammars in the minds of people. At Pentecost he did so again, but with a major difference, for the Christians suddenly gifted with the power to speak new languages did not forget their original tongue, Hebrew. God's Spirit here was also affecting a